Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GSN Sports Network podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, here on a Wednesday, the 22nd of December, 2021. Really getting close now to the year 2022. We're getting close. Hopefully you guys have picked your resolutions. Talked about this briefly on last Wednesday's podcast. Talked about it yesterday a little bit on the Double Coverage podcast, and I talked about it on Monday on the GSN College podcast. Every single day we got a podcast going on, especially towards the end of the year. Want to get everything wrapped up, and ready for the holidays. No pun intended. So we got a great show for you guys today, and I couldn't be more excited to talk about the topics that we have on the docket. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about it. So Vincent Jackson, the cause of death has been announced. It has been announced as a, overconsumption of alcohol. Kind of crazy. This is breaking news. This just got done, and the bank examiner, the medical examiner has released this, and he has said that this is the cause of death. He was a big time drinker. Someone even call him, an over drinker, maybe an alcoholic. Someone even hint towards. And it's just kind of unfortunate. But this was confirmed by the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's report released today, the 22nd of December, overconsumption of alcohol. So, yes, he was a big drinker, and it was very unclear at the time. It kind of died suddenly, I believe, in his apartment. And, he was found dead in a hotel room in February at the age of 38. And, it was very sudden, very unfortunate scene. And, it's sad. Still to this day, it leaves questions in all of our minds why that happened and why that occurred, especially at such a young age. People would say he's on the back nine of his career, but even if he was, no one has to go out this way. Especially being a Buccaneer and things like that. So let's just talk about my favorite teams in the NFL real quick. I got the Bucs and I got the Bills, the two Bs. I'm a big Bucs fan, big Bills fan. And if you guys don't know that by now, well, now you know. So keep that keep that in your memory and write it down if you have to. But nevertheless, very unfortunate news coming out against about Vincent Jackson. We would have been fine talking about it and reminiscing on his career and his legacy if it was just like an undisclosed way, or maybe it gives people closure finding out it was an alcohol related death. But some people are even calling this a cover up, where the NFL and Roger Goodell might be intertwined with this. I think that's just a preposterous thought process, in my opinion. Really preposterous, really kind of crazy to even bring that up and think that that's a possibility. So if this was the case, and if he was an over drinker, then that's that is what it is. I'm sure him and his family have dealt with that in a certain way. So we got to leave that alone and give that the respect that they deserve in dealing with that, the loss of Vincent Jackson there. So very unfortunate case of events, but it gives people closure, if nothing more. So it's just sad every way around, every way you look at it. And may he rest in peace. Let's move on. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, as a picture of him wearing a very controversial hoodie sparks the interest of many journalists, viewers, contributors, sports contributors, journalists, like I said, everywhere. And usually we don't talk about stuff like this on the GSN Sports Network podcast, but we're going to bring up Barstool. We're going to talk about it a little bit. The cancel culture hoodie is a hoodie that they dropped right around the point when Dave Portnoy was going through that sex scandal, really kind of a dark time in his career, a dark time in his memory of being in the spotlight, being the guy that he is, where people are talking about him all the time. He was trying to get canceled. He was trying to get canceled by the fake news, right? So he had some deliberations with a female that had been seeing him and going to his residence, and there's might have been relations there to a certain extent, but not to the extent that Portnoy had claimed. And he was really shutting this down hard. And he's like, you know what? This is just crazy. I can't believe this is happening to me. They're really trying to cancel me. They're trying to put Barstool on the back burner, and they really just want to, do away with Barstool and do away with me speaking as Dave. So they came out with the cancel culture hoodie, where it's basically just a black hoodie. I think it has a graphic on the back, and it just says cancel culture with a strike through effect on the text. And obviously it's going to sell like hotcakes, because it's a very prevalent thing nowadays in today's culture, with mass media, with social media, with all the ways to get a hold of the masses. There's ways to try to cancel individuals that might have ideals that don't align with the country's ideals or the society's ideals. So it's easy to do that, and it's really hard to fight that when everybody's against you, and you have, especially if you have physical proof of it against you, where they can just pile on and really make it into a story with whatever kind of evidence they want to bring into the equation. So where does Aaron Rodgers come into all this? So if you remember a couple weeks back, Aaron Rodgers was under fire when he was in COVID-19 protocols, and people were talking shit to him. Like, you know what? This guy's got to get vaccinated. Why is he not getting vaccinated? He's not complying with COVID restrictions. He's not getting things in order. So we're going to try to cancel him. We're going to talk all the shit we want about him. We want to get him out of the NFL. We want to, have his contract nulled and void. And they just wanted to do away with him. So Aaron Rodgers had a lot to say regarding cancel culture, because he lived it. He lived it, maybe not to the extent that Dave Portnoy did, in risking his career and his livelihood, and basically his name, his reputation was 100% on the line, where this might have not been completely the case for Aaron Rodgers. But he was under fire as well. People were talking some crap about him, and it wasn't about football. It wasn't about football. That's the thing that I like to talk shit about Aaron Rodgers. If I would only do it when it's about football, talk about the sport. Don't talk about stuff that happens off the field, unless it's very prevalent to the situation. Something like a vaccine, where he's getting ridiculed and getting death threats, things like that. That's just unfortunate, and it's uncalled for to do that. And a lot of different athletes, Bradley Beal, Kyrie Irving in the NBA, where the regulations are a little bit more strict regarding vaccination status, they have been under fire, and they continue to be under fire to this day, with Adam Silver still considering certain regulations and things like that to really lock down these players and limit them on what they're able to do in their free time, and both that and in their careers, which are professional athletes, unfortunately. And there's regulation that the NBA has, but there's also regulations within the states that these teams are in, So the state of New York, the Brooklyn Nets, where Kyrie Irving played, there was very strict regulations regarding vaccination status and mask usage to really limit him in a number of ways, where he didn't feel comfortable getting the vaccine. Those values, in my opinion, should have been respected. They were not, and he was basically, I guess, without better words to say, he was eliminated from the team and canceled. He was canceled from the team. And that's no really pun intended bringing in the cancel culture, but the cancel culture has really been intertwined with vaccination status and professional sports. And, not even just professional sports, but even, occupations where a lot of these occupations are in the healthcare profession. You're looking at nurses, you see videos all the time where they are walking out of their jobs because they can't work anywhere. They can't work at the place they're currently working because they don't have sufficient vaccination status for the hospital or the clinic, whatever it is. And they have to leave. Basically, they have to leave and they have to get fired. They're firing themselves unwillingly. But since these regulations are in place with this healthcare center or wherever it is, they are forced to either get the vaccine or not work. So usually that's a crossroads that none of us really want to cross. Maybe some of us have crossed it at a certain point in our lives as of late, but hopefully nobody has to do that, especially the nurses and the healthcare professionals, because these guys are the ones that are fighting on the front lines for you and me to stay safe and to stay healthy on a daily basis, regardless of the pandemic or not. This is just, average times. We're counting on our nurses, we're counting on our healthcare professionals to be in the office and to be in the workplace to serve us. So this is just kind of unfortunate all around, and really brings the satirical mindset and the satirical angle to everything that's going on in our daily lives and in our world right now, which is really prevalent, and it's very unfortunate in a lot of ways. But it's shedding light on a lot of things that that are really fake news. There are things that are fake news. There's things that are legit. My advice to you is to do your research, get very well rounded with your sources, because a lot of us, we don't have primary sources. We can't go to the White House and see what they're talking about, or we can't go to Madison Square Garden and see what everyone's talking about down there, seeing what's happening for ourselves. We have to count on third-party news networks to give us the news and the information that we need and that we count on. So a lot of things to consider there, but just be well-rounded. Make sure you do your research on all your sources whenever it comes to news, whenever it comes to information that's coming from the outside in. And that's really all I can really tell you about that. And just be well-rounded about it. Check your sources, validate your sources, and be well-rounded in your sources. So a lot to be said there. That's kind of a mouthful as far as a topic is concerned, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things you guys got to keep your eyes open about, because you got to be in the loop. If you're not in the loop, you're going to get left behind. So that's basically it. Moving on, let's talk about some more NFL stuff. Matt Nagy, is he on the hot seat? Sitting there at 4-10 with a recent loss to the Vikings. And it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate for the Bears to lose that one. It was kind of a close game. But Matt Nagy, he is really on the hot seat, even after last year, a little bit better season. But they haven't really been performing like they wanted to. And that's very unfortunate for the Chicago Bears, because the Bears are known as a team that is a fighter, a fighting spirit within the NFL and the NFC North. So if you don't see them as a fighting spirit, and I know this really hurts some accolades that I know, Josh Manson in specific, he's a huge Bears fan, was my roommate last year, great guy. But he's a diehard Bears fan. I never let him live it down, because I am not a Bears fan at all. I honestly, in a lot of ways, despise the NFC North for my own reasons. So if you can kind of read into that and kind of assume why that is, then credit to you. But yeah, Matt Nagy has not produced the product that the Chicago Bears plan on getting every year. They plan on reaping a certain amount of products, a certain amount of success within a season. They haven't done that, and they haven't really delivered on those promises, especially with all the promise coming out of Ohio State with Justin Fields, with Andy Dalton battling injuries. He's kind of, he should be a backup quarterback anyway. I don't care, where he stands or where he did or where he played at the Bengals or how he played. He is a backup quarterback all day long. Justin Fields has to be in that number one spot. And you can't really bring age into the conversation. It comes down to numbers. It comes down to what you're producing on the field week after week. And honestly, within both these quarterbacks, it's just not enough. So Excuse me. It's just not enough from the Chicago Bears. They have to figure it out, and they have to get the job done. They're not doing that right now. And basically, if you're a Bears fan, you want to kind of get in the motion to move away from Matt Nagy. It's time for a breath of fresh air. It's time for something new. And that's what you need out of the Chicago Bears. If you're a Chicago Bears fan, you're looking for something new, something fresh. And that's what you have to expect. So this kind of brings us into our next topic that is also it's also considered in everything we've already talked about. And what is that topic, ladies and gentlemen? You can read it on your screen right now very clearly. Omicron, the Omicron variant. How does it affect sports? How does it affect our sports world today? We have a lot of big sporting events coming up in the near future. Okay. And these sporting events include the Super Bowl. They include March Madness. They include much of the rest of the NBA season. And very nearly and dearly is all the Christmas games. I'm talking about bowl games, the college football playoff. I'm talking about, just NBA games, college basketball. A lot of sports are going on. We're starting to escape from the sports eclipse, which happened in late October and early November. But we're still very much in the eclipse. We're expecting and we're experiencing many of these effects that have been produced from the sports eclipse. That means we have NHL now, we have college basketball, we have college football wrapping up with bowl week, continuing on throughout this week and into next week. We have NFL football, which is kind of getting, towards the back nine a little bit with playoffs looming. We also have March Madness, a big event that's coming up in a couple months. We got some time before March Madness, but Omicron has came to the forefront as a huge issue, and officials from all of these leagues have been faced with a very difficult decision. What should we do? Should we continue to play or should we suspend play? We've seen games happen on odd days. Just this past week in the NFL, we've seen games on Monday. We've seen a doubleheader on Monday. We've seen games on Saturday. We've seen two games yesterday on Tuesday. So it's like, what's going on here? And some of these teams benefited from the delay and from the postponement of these games, and other teams it was a detriment to. But will this continue to happen? There's a certain amount of games. You obviously know it's an extended season within the NFL. You got to get a certain amount of games in before you can move on to the playoffs. These dates are set in stone. So you have to find days within the week sometimes that are non-NFL days. That means not a Monday, not a Thursday, not a Sunday. So if you see a football game that's in the NFL happening on any of those days, it's almost like, what the hell's going on, right? What the hell's going on? So these games have been delayed or postponed due to, lack of attendance due to the virus, due to the Omicron variant in specific, and previously the Delta variant. But we're seeing a lot of coaches, especially now, along with players, at record numbers where they are not able to play and they're not able to hold these games or attend these games because they have COVID-19. The latest breaking news case about a coach or coaches having the virus includes Eagles coach Nick Sirianni and Jets coach Robert Saleh. They both test positive. This is as of 5 p.m. today. So this is breaking news. This is happening, all the time. We also seen coaches such as Kevin Stefanski, the coach of the Browns, being absent, and numerous players. We've seen Baker Mayfield being one of those. Him and Stefanski didn't, perform. They didn't show up. They couldn't because they had the virus. They're under like quarantine, right? So it's unbelievable what's happening in the NFL, especially within certain teams. And we're seeing a surge in certain teams in certain areas of the NFC and AFC that are higher than others. Kind of an outlier to that is Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. He credits the lack of nightlife in Cincinnati to the team's good health, I guess. The lack of COVID-19 cases that they have suffered. They have basically not suffered as many COVID cases, both coaches and in players, to be able to play in a lot of these games and keep a lot of their personnel on the field and on the sidelines, because obviously there's not enough nightlife. And, he said this in a quote: "Fortunately, there's not a ton to do in Cincinnati." Burrow said Wednesday, nobody is going out to clubs and bars getting COVID every weekend, but we've been healthy. So take that for what it's worth. And a lot of people like to credit not going out or going out. That either gives you COVID or not. And everyone has their own opinions about it. But I guess you can accredit this to, not being able to go out, not being able to have the clubs, the nightlife, things of that nature where you're having close contact. Maybe you're sharing drinks. Maybe you're, sharing vapes, whatever you're doing. I don't know what the kids are doing nowadays out at the clubs. I'm turning into an old man myself. So sometimes I'm not always in the loop. But, if he has to credit this to not having a ton of nightlife, then more power to him and more power to the Cincinnati Bengals, as they're one of the few teams that has suffered the least amount of COVID cases as of late. In other Omicron news, the Cowboys have released a statement urging families and fans to stay home amidst the virus surge. Are we going back to March of 2020? I feel like we are. And feel free to comment on me on this podcast and feel free to reach out to me personally if you want to talk about this more. But I feel like we're going back. We're going backwards. And we're taking steps forward. We're doing the things we have to do. And I'm going to take some fire for this. I'm taking controversy. I feel like I took a controversy class at Michigan State. If I didn't, I should have taught it. Because I love controversy. I love bringing it to the forefront. It has to be talked about. These are things that we have to talk about. These are things that are going through the minds of everybody living their lives in the United States of America or anywhere in the world, really. Dealing with the Delta variant, dealing with now the Omicron variant, and whatever variant is to come next. Okay, so they're kind of going through the Greek alphabet. What are they going to do when they run out of letters from the Greek alphabet? That's the question I have. So that's a question. I think they can figure it out at a later date. But to kind of go backwards, especially with, a lot of the sports eclipse still being here, that means a lot of these sporting teams, these sporting events are still going on. There's some in the future that have to be considered. We already lost one March Madness. Okay. I don't know what's going to happen if we lose two. And I don't want to get to that point. Okay. This isn't what Kobe would have wanted. So I just have to put that out there and make that very clear. And I hate to bring Mamba into this. But this is not what he would have wanted. And you can bet your ass if he was alive right now and he was going through this with all of us, he'd be speaking out about it. So take that as food for thought. I don't really know how Omicron and the Delta variant, as it's still running rampant in our country and within our sports world, how is it going to affect these sporting events? I don't really know. It's kind of unforeseen at this point. Adam Silver, the NBA, has released in a statement that the Christmas games will continue to go on. They will continue to play the Christmas games as planned. I haven't heard any changes about that yet, but changes can happen. They can happen overnight, as we've seen. So there's a lot of things to consider, a lot of things to look forward to, and hopefully none of these big sporting events get canceled because it could be detrimental to our sports world and society as a whole. Okay, now to talk about some housekeeping stuff. Talking about some Gin back office release notes. Now, does that not sound official or what? Okay, I don't mean to scare anybody. I didn't want to scare anybody in that last segment. It was a little bit intense. Hopefully you guys are sitting down when you watch that because I got a little bit intense there. For those of you guys listening to this podcast in the car, maybe you almost crashed your car right there. Okay, but I hope you didn't. I hope you're staying sane. You're staying in the road, staying in your lane, because that's what it's all about, is staying in your lane, keeping focus on the road ahead, and being focused on the next objective, because that's what we all have to do in our daily lives, have to be focused on the next objective. What is coming next? What do I have to do to put myself in the best position to be successful? These are questions we have, and we have to kind of put blinders up for everything else that's going on in our world, because there's so much that we can't control. There's so much we can't do anything about. So the more that we can be laser focused on what we have to do and what we have to get done in our objectives, in our assignments, no late assignments. I've said that before in press conferences and podcasts, but no late assignments. Keep laser focused on your assignments, what you have to get done. So now to get to the actual content, Gin back office release notes. What do I have to tell the people about what is to come regarding Gin? Okay, so number one on the list, the betting packages within Bet with Gin and the Gin Sports Network, they're both intertwined. They will be released, and packages and different information regarding those packages will be released on the first of the year, as well as the new GSN website, which will also be released. Domain name to be announced, hasn't been released yet. The domain name to the website will be released on the first as well. I'm trying to think what I haven't talked about already. Those are the two big things. There's some things regarding Gin Gaming that are in the works that have not been released, but they're in the works as well. That information will also be released on the new website on the first of the year. There'll be a new tab, a new page regarding Gin Gaming and where it is headed into 2022. It's very exciting stuff. That's a huge, very exciting segment of Gin that I'm super excited to dive more into. Got some good gamers coming on the team, and it's gonna be great. I'm really excited about it. I couldn't help but smile when I said that because there's a lot of stuff that I can't tell right now. It's gonna be released on the first, but we're really excited about that. What we're gonna be able to do. I can release a little bit about it. So we're creating a gaming team, a streaming team. There's gonna be gaming teams involved with different competitions, different tournaments online with other teams and with other competitors on the online gaming sphere, which is super exciting. Esports is a thing. Esports is just as much a sport as football. And that might make your head spin a little bit, but esports has come to the forefront. And Gin, the Game Information Network, that's what Gin stands for. If you guys never knew that, now you do. The Game Information Network within GSN, the Gin Sports Network, it's all intertwined, it's all connected, and it's going to be great. So it's happening, guys. It's happening. So esports is just as much a sport as football, basketball, golf, hockey, badminton, cricket, and I digress. But it's very exciting to see this come to the forefront. And I was a naysayer. I was probably the worst one out there. I was like, esports, that's not a sport. You're sitting behind a computer, you're playing a game. Sometimes some of these guys are playing on a keyboard and a mouse. Or some might say they have an unfair advantage, but I'm not going to say that here right now. But the more I kind of let it marinate, I let it sit, I slept on it a little bit. This is a thing that's going to take off, and it's already taken off. There's already competitions worth $50,000, worth $100,000. Some are even worth $500,000. There's a lot of money in this. There's a lot of competition in this. If you have a strong connection, if you have strong gaming skills, please let us know. We would love to get you on the team, even if you don't stream. So, as many of you guys may know, Gin Gaming has been directed and centralized around streaming. Mostly the big games, the big BR platforms. You got the Fortnite, you got the Warzone, which is huge. And PUBG is kind of on its way out, garbage. So not really considering that, but also sports games, 2K, Madden, FIFA. And, streaming has really took Gin Gaming by storm. But this new thing that is coming with Gin Gaming involves more team efforts, involves more team aesthetics. So consider that when you're thinking about hitting us up. We'd love to have a conversation with you. If you or someone you know is a avid gamer, send them our way. We'd love to have a conversation with them and see what they're all about. But that's about all I can release right now. I might do a press conference emergency, just talking about some other housekeeping issues, housekeeping information. But if I don't talk to you between now and then, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'll talk to you guys on Monday regarding the Gin College podcast on the Gin College podcast on Monday. So I will talk to you between now and the new year. But if I don't talk to you between now and Christmas, have a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday. And I hope to be in touch with you guys very soon. Feel free to reach out and check out all of our socials via our link tree, which is at the bottom of the screen right now. Check it out. It's also in the description for those of you guys listening via the audio on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure to check out that link and check out all of our posts and all of our social media coverage that we have all over the internet. But I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the Gin Sports Network podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II. Be smooth, be safe, and be healthy. Have a good one, guys.